The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way,
What if I told you that behind one of the most beloved pop groups in history lay a heartbreaking story of love, betrayal, and devastating personal loss that would make even the strongest person crumble? The world knew ABBA as the Swedish superstars who gave us Dancing Queen and Mamma Mia. But what they didn't know was that the real-life drama behind those glittering costumes was far more painful than any song could ever express. And now, at 78 years old, Benny Andersson has finally broken his decades-long silence about the truth that nearly destroyed them all. Picture this: two couples at the height of global stardom, performing love songs on stage night after night, while their own marriages were secretly falling apart behind the scenes. The fans had no idea that the same people singing about eternal love were going home to empty beds and broken hearts. But what happened next was so devastating that it would change their lives forever and create one of the most tragic stories in music history. Benny Andersson wasn't supposed to become a global superstar. Born in Stockholm in 1946, he was just a working-class kid whose father and grandfather played accordion. When little Benny got his first accordion at age 6, nobody could have predicted that this quiet Swedish boy would one day create songs that would make the entire world dance. But music was literally in his blood, and by age 10, he was teaching himself piano, completely mesmerized by the magic of creating melodies. Everything changed when he joined the Hep Stars in 1964. Suddenly, this shy teenager became Sweden's hottest teen idol, screaming fans chasing him down the street like he was Elvis Presley himself. But fame came with a price. Benny met his first girlfriend, Christina, and by the time he was barely out of his teens, he had 2 children to support. The pressure was crushing, but it was nothing compared to what was coming next. The moment that would change everything happened in June 1966, when Benny met a young man named Björn Ulvaeus. These two didn't just click musically, they became creative soulmates, writing songs together like they'd been doing it their entire lives. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. Through a twist of fate that seems too perfect to be real, Benny fell head over heels for a stunning singer named Anni-Frid Lyngstad, while Björn was completely enchanted by the voice of Agnetha Fältskog. What happened next was like something out of a fairy tale. Two couples madly in love decided to combine their talents and create music together. They had no idea they were about to become the most successful pop group in history, but more importantly, they had no clue about the heartbreak that was waiting for them just around the corner. The magic really started in 1974 when they won Eurovision with Waterloo, and suddenly the whole world was singing their songs. But here's what nobody talks about. While millions of people were falling in love to ABBA's music, the real-life couples behind the songs were slowly falling out of love with each other. The constant touring, the relentless pressure, and being in each other's faces 24 hours a day was taking a toll that none of them saw coming. Agnetha and Björn seemed like the perfect couple, marrying in 1971 with Benny playing organ at their wedding. They had 2 beautiful children, Linda and Peter, and fans around the world envied their seemingly perfect life. But behind closed doors, something was desperately wrong. Agnetha was developing severe stage fright and a paralyzing fear of flying that made touring absolute torture for her. While she was singing about joy and celebration on stage, inside she was dying a little more each day. Then came 1979, the year that shattered everything. At the absolute peak of ABBA's success, when Dancing Queen was playing in every country on earth, Agnetha and Björn's marriage exploded. The divorce was devastating for Agnetha, who later revealed she needed therapy just to survive the emotional devastation. But here's the part that will break your heart. Reports claim that Björn had moved on to a new girlfriend, Lena, within a week of their separation. The pain was so raw that it inspired one of ABBA's most heartbreaking songs. When Björn wrote "The Winner Takes It All," he asked his ex-wife Agnetha to sing it, knowing that every word would cut through her like a knife. Listen to those lyrics. "Tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" Agnetha later said singing that song was both fantastic and torturous because she could pour all her genuine heartbreak into every note. But if you think that was painful, wait until you hear what happened to Benny and Anni-Frid. These two had been together since 1969, living as partners for years before finally marrying in 1978 at the height of ABBA's fame. They seemed unbreakable, the steady couple that would hold the group together. But just 2 years after their wedding, in 1980, their marriage also collapsed. The reason was devastating. Benny had fallen for someone else, a TV producer named Mona Nurklet, whom he married just 1 year after divorcing Anifrid. Imagine the pain of watching the man you love for over a decade move on so quickly while you were still trying to piece your heart back together. Now here's where this story becomes absolutely tragic. By 1982, both marriages were destroyed, and ABBA essentially ceased to exist. But while Benny and Björn went on to create massive successes like the musical Chess and eventually Mamma Mia, making them hundreds of millions of dollars, the women's lives took a completely different and heartbreaking turn. Agnetha's story after ABBA is almost too sad to believe. She became increasingly reclusive, struggling with depression and avoiding the music industry entirely. She moved deep into the Swedish countryside, living like a hermit, even saying at one point, "I want to be alone," echoing the famous words of Greta Garbo. The woman who once performed for millions of screaming fans could barely leave her house. In one of the strangest chapters of her life, she began a relationship with a Dutch fan who had actually been stalking her for years. She later admitted, "I felt I could not resist anymore. I wanted to know him." When that relationship ended badly, he went back to stalking her, forcing her to seek court protection. Tragedy piled onto tragedy when both her parents died within a year of each other, her mother by suicide. Annie Fried's story carries its own unbearable sadness. Born during World War II as the result of a brief romance between her Norwegian mother and a German soldier, she was essentially abandoned when her mother died at just 21 years old. Raised by her grandmother, she didn't even meet her father until she was 32. After ABBA ended and her marriage to Benny collapsed, she eventually found love again, marrying German royalty and becoming a princess. But happiness seemed cursed for her. Her 30-year-old daughter was killed in a car accident in 1998, and the next year her new husband died of cancer. For decades, the idea of ABBA reuniting seemed impossible. The personal wounds were too deep, the pain too real. Offers poured in, including a reported $1 billion in the early 2000s for a concert series, which they turned down without hesitation. Fans around the world gave up hope of ever seeing the four of them together again. But then something miraculous happened in 2018. After nearly 40 years apart, all four members began talking about working together again. What started as plans for just 2 new songs grew into a full album called Voyage, released in 2021. Björn described that first day back in the studio. "I looked around and I looked into Agnetha's eyes and Frida's eyes, and there was the same kind of feeling, the warmth and the friendship and the bonds." The most touching moment came recently at the ABBA Voyage show in London, when 78-year-old Benny and 79-year-old Annie Fried made a surprise appearance together for the show's 3rd anniversary. Standing side by side in the balcony, decades after their painful divorce, they showed the world that sometimes love transforms, but never truly dies. Annie Fried told the cheering crowd, "I love you very much. Thank you for all your support over the years. It's hard to imagine it's nearly 50 years ago." Then Benny did something that revealed everything about their relationship today. Instead of making a serious speech, he lightened the mood with a playful joke. 2 men walk into a bar, making Annie Fried burst into genuine laughter. It was a moment that showed how much respect and affection still remains between them after all these years. Today, ABBA's legacy lives on not just through their timeless music, but through the reminder that even the most devastating heartbreak can eventually transform into something beautiful. Their story proves that love takes many forms, and sometimes the greatest love story isn't about staying together forever, but about finding your way back to caring for each other, despite everything that's happened. The music that was born from their pain has brought joy to billions of people, proving that sometimes our greatest suffering becomes our most precious gift to the world.